Sunday school leaders. I am recording this from a little bit different location than normal. I'm in Northwest Oklahoma. It's Monday, April 25th, and tomorrow is the funeral for my brother-in-law in Woodward, Oklahoma. And so we're up here attending that. But I do have a few things I want to get to you before Sunday about this upcoming lesson. We are continuing in the unit entitled Beauty from Ashes, Redeeming Your Broken Moments. And this week we're in session 3, looking at Redeemed from a Critical Spirit out of Numbers 12. Well, like I said, I'm in Northwest Oklahoma in the little town of Winoka, and their mascot, their high school mascot, is called the Railroaders, and that's because this is a big railroad town. At least it used to be back in the day, and there's still a lot of trains that pass through, so you may hear some background noise as we go along today. I think this is probably one of our most needed lessons, but however, I think most people aren't going to hear this because of our musical worship presentation that we're doing Sunday. I know a lot of people will be out of Sunday school, and so you might want to, if your class isn't meeting, or you might want to at least hit some of the highlights the following week on May 8th. I think we're probably in the most critical society that's ever existed, I guess. Due to social media, we couple that with the freedom of expression. We're allowed to anonymously comment on blogs and websites, and it allows us to complain, to be critical without ceasing. And of course, we know that's not the biblical thing to do. Now, we're in Numbers 12 today, and we're looking at Moses and his family, and a very harsh example of what can happen when one's critical. And I'm not going to go into I'm not going to go into a commentary today and explain some of the Bible passage. I think your commentaries and your lesson book does a very good job of that. I'm going to talk about criticism, though. We know that there is such a thing as good criticism, a constructive criticism, and hopefully, if you're in business or you're an employee and you have a time of review, maybe an annual review, that you get constructive criticism, because the job of that is feedback. The goal is to build up and to make you better. And we're not talking about that, of course. What we're talking about is that bad criticism, that destructive criticism, because the goal there is to tear down. Now, I went to church with a man many years ago, and he was critical of just about everything that anybody in authority did, whether that be the deacons or a finance committee or any committee that he wasn't on. He was critical about it, questioned every expenditure that he wasn't too sure about. And we were in a fellowship one time, had a time of fellowship in our fellowship hall, and he made a comment about something that had happened in the church, just a passing comment about the date that something had happened. And I happened to know that was the incorrect date, that it was actually a year or two, I don't even remember the exact specifics here, but it was either a year or two before or after what he said. And I said, well, no, it's actually this, because of something that I knew that actually happened, that I could benchmark that back to. He stood there for a minute, and you could just tell he just got enraged. Never said a word, though. He just walked out the door, slammed the door to the fellowship hall, got into his vehicle, and sped out of the parking lot, spitting gravel as he went. He had a very critical spirit, and it made itself manifest in his actions and what he said in business meeting. And that's one of the reasons I still to this day dread business meetings, even though we have very civil business meetings at First Baptist Whitehall. Still, there's a little part of me when it's business meeting time that my heart, I guess, just pitter-patters, that I just wish this would get over with, and I think it goes back to that time. Anyway, there are different ways that a critical spirit can manifest itself. You can be a complainer, you can be judgmental, you can be a gossip. Because see, if you're critical, you're going to gossip about people. You're going to be judgmental of that person. You're going to complain about a situation. And it may even lead to the point of slander, just outright lying about something. There are different root causes to a critical spirit, some of them being a lack of control. And I'll just go back to the man that I was mentioning earlier. He didn't have control. He wasn't on a certain committee, or he wasn't in the deacons, and so he felt threatened, and so he didn't have control, and so his critical spirit came out. There's also a root cause could be fear, it could be envy. It could be that self is on the throne, that pride, when my pride is hurt. And I think I saw that when I mentioned to him about when he was wrong about the date. When he was wrong and he knew it, his pride was hurt and it just ticked him off. And also, we can be critical when we're hypocrites. And let me explain that. If I've got something going on in my life that I really don't want anybody to know about, and I can make somebody else look bad, it gets the spotlight off of me and onto them. And so I can be critical of somebody else and talk them down. So anyway, that's some thoughts that you might want to bring up in Sunday school. Is, of course, you want to go through the biblical text and explain that and explain kind of what's in your lesson book. But you might also want to bring out some of these things and then get back to the root. Do I have a critical spirit? You know, and you might mention some of these things. Are you a complainer? Are you a judgmental person? Are you a gossip? Do you slander? And then maybe get to some of these roots. And maybe, you know, of course, it's not a therapy session, but it might get some people to look inside themselves and determine that there's some issues going on there that they need to resolve, and that getting the relationship with Christ right will help resolve these root issues. That's all I have for today. Didn't have too much train noise in the background, so we'll be back Wednesday night, and if I don't see you then, I hope to see you Sunday.